The rain hammered down on Highway 40 like bullets on steel. 28 Harley-Davidsons roared through the darkness, their engines drowning out the thunder above. Chrome flashed under streetlights. Leather gleamed wet and black. At the head of the pack rode a man who looked like he'd been carved from granite and war. Garrett Blackwood, 42 years old, 6'2" of muscle, scars, and silent fury. The patches on his jacket told a story. Hell's Angels, Memphis Charter, Road Captain. But tonight, those patches meant nothing compared to the rage burning in his chest. The warehouse loomed ahead, abandoned, forgotten. The perfect place for men who did dark things in the shadows. Garrett raised his fist. The motorcycles fell silent, one by one, until only the rain remained. He dismounted. Boots hit wet pavement. Water streamed down his face, but his eyes never blinked, never wavered. Behind him, 27 brothers did the same. Not friends, not colleagues, brothers. Men who'd seen hell and chose to ride together through whatever came next. Garrett walked toward the warehouse door, each step deliberate, controlled, like a predator closing in on prey that didn't yet know it was already dead. He stopped at the entrance, flexed his fingers. The wedding ring on his right hand caught the light for just a moment. Not his ring, his father's, worn, scratched. A reminder of the man who taught him what it meant to protect family. His voice cut through the rain, low, cold, cold. Tell him something for me. Tell Vincent Harlow that Garrett Blackwood is here. And tell him this. He paused. Thunder rolled across the sky. Don't ever touch my mother again. 2 o'clock, the Brotherhood. Monday morning, 6:43 a.m. The sun hadn't fully risen over Memphis yet, but Garrett had been awake for hours. Old habits, Marine Corps habits, the kind that 23 years of civilian life couldn't erase. He stood in the garage of the Memphis Hells Angels clubhouse, a wrench in one hand, coffee in the other. His motorcycle, a 1998 Harley-Davidson Fat Boy, black as midnight, sat on the lift before him. 13 years he'd owned this bike, longer than his marriage had lasted, more reliable too. The garage smelled like motor oil, leather, and yesterday's whiskey. Home. You're here early. Garrett didn't turn. He knew the voice. Declan Murphy. The brothers called him Prophet, not because he could see the future, but because he'd predicted 3 FBI raids before they happened. Former NSA genius-level IQ, paranoid as hell. Perfect for the Brotherhood. Couldn't sleep, Garrett said. The dreams again? Always the dreams. Declan walked closer. He carried 2 more cups of coffee, set one down beside Garrett's tools. Kuwait or after? Both. Silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable, just the silence of men who understood that some things didn't need words. Garrett tightened a bolt. The repetitive motion calmed him. Meditation with a wrench. His therapist at the VA had suggested it years ago. Back when the nightmares were so bad he couldn't close his eyes without seeing sand and blood and the face of his best friend dying in his arms. That was 1991. Desert Storm. Operation Desert Saber. Garrett had been 19 years old, a kid playing soldier until the moment the bullets started flying, and he realized, too late, that war wasn't a game. He came home different. Everyone said so. His mother saw it first, the way his eyes never stopped scanning rooms for exits, the way he flinched at loud noises, the way he couldn't sit with his back to a door. You should talk to someone, she'd said. I talk to you, he'd replied. I mean a professional, baby. But professionals didn't understand. They hadn't been there, hadn't felt the heat of the desert sun or the cold certainty that today might be your last day breathing. The Hells Angels understood. Not all of them were veterans, but all of them were warriors in their own way. Men society had labeled as problems, troublemakers, dangerous. Maybe they were, but they were also brothers. Phone's buzzing, Declan said. Garrett looked at the workbench. His phone screen lit up. Unknown number, Memphis area code. He almost didn't answer. Then something in his gut, That same instinct that had kept him alive in combat told him to pick up. He wiped the oil from his hands, hit the green button. Yeah? Silence on the other end. Not empty silence, the kind where someone's there but can't find words. Then barely a whisper. Garrett? His entire body went rigid. He knew that voice, knew it better than his own. Mom? I'm sorry to call. I know we haven't. I know it's been. What's wrong? Straight to the point. No time for the 3 years of silence between them. No time for apologies or explanations. Something in her voice told him everything he needed to know. Someone had hurt his mother, and whoever did was about to learn what it meant to face the wrath of a United States Marine turned Hell's Angels road captain. The diner sat on the corner of Beale and 3rd, right in the heart of downtown Memphis. Evelyn's Diner. The sign had been there since 1986, 38 years, longer than some marriages, longer than most businesses in this neighborhood. Evelyn Blackwood had bought the place with her husband Thomas the same year Garrett was born. Back then, Memphis was different. The neighborhood was different. The world was different. But Evelyn's Diner remained, a constant, an anchor. The building was small, narrow storefront, red brick that had seen better decades, windows that still had the original glass, wavy, imperfect, real. Inside, 15 stools at a counter. 8 booths with cracked vinyl seats that Evelyn patched herself with duct tape and pride. The menu never changed. Eggs, bacon, grits, biscuits and gravy, coffee that could wake the dead. Working class food for working class people. Evelyn was 67 years old, 5'4", silver hair she kept in a practical bun, hands rough from decades of cooking and cleaning, face lined with wrinkles earned through laughter, worry, and the particular exhaustion that comes from raising a son alone after your husband dies of a heart attack while fixing a transmission in the garage out back. That was 2012, 12 years ago, the day Thomas Blackwood collapsed at 58 and never got up again. Evelyn had cried for 3 days straight. Then she dried her eyes, opened the diner at 5 a.m. like always, and kept moving forward. Because that's what you did. That's what Thomas would have wanted. The diner was her life now, her purpose, her connection to a man she'd loved for 40 years. She arrived every morning at 4:30, unlocked the door, turned on the lights, started the coffee, preheated the griddle. By 5 a.m., the first customers would trickle in. Construction workers, nurses finishing night shifts, police officers, homeless men who knew Evelyn would feed them even if their pockets were empty. You can't save everyone, Thomas used to say. Maybe not, Evelyn would reply, but I can feed them. This morning started like every other, dark, quiet, the city still sleeping while Evelyn Blackwood did what she'd done for nearly 4 decades, prepared to feed her people. She was cracking eggs when she heard the sound, breaking glass. Her heart jumped. She turned toward the front window. Nothing. The street was empty, dawn still an hour away. Then she saw it, the brick, lying on the floor surrounded by glittering shards of her front window. The window Thomas had installed himself. The window that had survived 38 years of Memphis weather. Taped to the brick was a note. Evelyn's hands shook as she unfolded the paper. 3 words, written in red marker that looked too much like blood. Sell or die. The first letter had arrived 3 months ago. Evelyn remembered because it came the same week she'd celebrated the diner's 38th anniversary. She'd baked a cake. Her regulars had sung. Someone had brought champagne. It had been a good day. The letter ruined it. Dear Mrs. Blackwood, my name is Vincent Harlow, CEO of Harlow Development Corporation. I am writing to express my interest in purchasing your property at 447 Beale Street. We are prepared to offer $750,000, well above market value, for immediate sale and closure. I believe this represents a generous opportunity for your retirement. Please contact my office at your earliest convenience. Respectfully, Vincent Harlow. Evelyn had crumpled the letter and thrown it away. She didn't want to retire, didn't want $750,000. Didn't want to sell the place where her husband's memory lived in every corner, every countertop, every coffee stain on the floor. 2 weeks later, another letter. Same letterhead, different tone. Mrs. Blackwood, I haven't received a response to my previous offer. Perhaps I wasn't clear. This development project will proceed with or without your cooperation. However, cooperation would be significantly more pleasant for all parties involved. Please reconsider. Vincent Harlow. Evelyn called her lawyer, a kind man named Raymond who'd handled Thomas's will. He read the letter, frowned, and said, "That sounds like a threat. Can they force me to sell?" "Not unless they can prove eminent domain. And this is private development, not public infrastructure." He paused. "But, Evelyn, these big developers, they have ways." "What kind of ways?" Raymond looked uncomfortable. "Legal harassment, code violations, making your life difficult until you give up." "I won't give up," Evelyn had said, and she meant it. But Vincent Harlow wasn't a man who accepted no for an answer. First came the building inspector, showed up unannounced during lunch rush, claimed someone had filed a complaint, found 17 violations. Things that had been fine for 38 years were suddenly dangerous. The water heater, the electrical panel, the ventilation system, $5,000 in fines, 30 days to fix everything or face closure. Evelyn paid, fixed what needed fixing, kept the diner open. Then the health inspector, 2 surprise visits in 1 week, both times during peak hours, disrupting service, scaring customers, found violations that didn't exist. Claimed the refrigerator temperature was wrong. It wasn't. Claimed she was storing food improperly. She wasn't. More fines, more fixes, more money draining from accounts that were already thin. Then the really dirty trick started. The electricity went out, 3 times in 2 weeks. Memphis Light, Gas and Water claimed maintenance issues. But the shop next door never lost power. Neither did the pharmacy across the street, just Evelyn's diner. The water shut off during breakfast rush. Emergency repairs, they said, took 6 hours to restore. She lost a full day of business. Customers started staying away, not because they wanted to, because every time they came, something was wrong. No lights, no water, inspectors blocking the door. Evelyn watched her life's work slowly dying, and she knew exactly who was killing it. Last Friday, a man came to the diner, expensive suit, slick back hair, smile that never reached his eyes. He sat at the counter and ordered coffee. "You're Evelyn Blackwood," he said, not a question. "That's what the sign says." "I work for Mr. Harlow." He slid a business card across the counter. "He asked me to convey a message." "I'm not interested." "You should be." The man's smile disappeared. "This neighborhood is changing, Mrs. Blackwood. People like you, people clinging to the past, you're in the way. Mr. Harlow is offering you a graceful exit. I suggest you take it." "And if I don't?" The man stood, left a $20 bill for a $3 coffee. "Then things get harder, much harder. And at your age, do you really want hard?" He walked out. That night, someone slashed all 4 tires on Evelyn's car. The next night, someone spray-painted obscenities on the diner's front wall. And this morning, the brick through the window. Sell or die. Evelyn stood in her diner, surrounded by broken glass, holding a threatening note, and realized something. She was 67 years old, alone, tired, and for the first time in her life, genuinely afraid. She looked at the phone on the wall, the one she'd been staring at for 3 years, the one she'd wanted to call so many times, but pride kept her fingers frozen. Her son's number was still programmed in. She'd never deleted it, never could. The last time they'd spoken, they'd screamed at each other. Words designed to wound. Words you can never take back. "You're throwing your life away," she'd shouted. "You don't get to tell me how to live," Garrett had fired back. "That club is full of criminals. Those criminals are my brothers. They're the only people who understand what I've been through." "I understand. I'm your mother." "No, Mom. You worry. That's not the same as understanding." He'd walked out, climbed on his motorcycle, ridden away. That was 2021. 3 years ago. They hadn't spoken since. But now, standing in her destroyed diner, reading a death threat, Evelyn Blackwood did something she'd never done in her entire life. She asked for help. She picked up the phone, dialed the number she knew by heart, listened to it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. Then a voice. Rough, guarded, familiar. Yeah? Evelyn's throat closed. Tears she'd been holding back for 3 years suddenly broke free. Garrett? She whispered. I'm sorry to call. I know we haven't. I know it's been. What's wrong? 2 words. But in those 2 words, Evelyn heard everything. The worry, the love, the immediate shift from estranged son to protector. I need you, she said. Someone's threatening me. The diner, I don't know what to do. Silence, but not empty. She could hear his breathing, could feel his rage building through the phone line. Where are you now? Garrett asked. His voice was different, colder, the voice of a man preparing for war. At the diner. Lock the doors. Don't let anyone in. I'm coming. Garrett, Mom, lock the doors. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The line went dead. Evelyn stood holding the phone, tears streaming down her face. Not from fear anymore, from relief. Her son was coming home. Garrett made it in 17 minutes. He rode alone, fast, dangerous. The kind of riding that would get you pulled over if any cop saw you. But he didn't care. Someone had threatened his mother, the woman who'd raised him alone after his father died. The woman who'd held him when the nightmares were so bad he couldn't breathe. The woman he'd abandoned 3 years ago because his pride was bigger than his love. The guilt ate at him the entire ride. He pulled up to Evelyn's diner just as the sun was breaking over the Mississippi River. The street was quiet, empty. Dawn light made the broken window look even worse. Garrett killed the engine, sat for a moment, stared at the building he'd grown up in. He'd spent his childhood at that counter, done homework in those booths, learned to cook on that griddle, learned about life, death, love, and loss within these walls. And he'd walked away from it, from her. He dismounted, approached the door, saw his mother's face in the window. She looked older. When had she gotten so old? 3 years. That's how long it took for time to catch up with someone you loved. She unlocked the door. They stood face to face, mother and son. 3 years of silence between them. Evelyn spoke first. You grew your beard out. Yeah. It's got gray in it. Yeah. You look like your father. Garrett's throat tightened. Mom! She grabbed him, pulled him into a hug fierce enough to knock the air from his lungs. And Garrett Blackwood, road captain of the Memphis Hells Angels, former United States Marine, man who killed enemy combatants with his bare hands, broke. He wrapped his arms around his mother and cried like he hadn't cried since his father's funeral. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have left. I shouldn't have said those things. Hush, Evelyn said. She pulled back, held his face in her hands like she did when he was a boy. You're here now. That's what matters. Tell me everything. So she did. They sat in a booth, the same booth where Garrett had eaten breakfast every morning before school, and Evelyn told him about Vincent Harlow. The letters, the threats, the inspectors, the vandalism, the brick. Garrett listened, didn't interrupt. His face remained neutral, but his hands resting on the table gradually curled into fists. When Evelyn finished, silence filled the diner. Then Garrett spoke. His voice was quiet, calm, the kind of calm that comes before violence. Do you have the letters? In the office. Show me. Evelyn led him to the small office in the back. Barely more than a closet, desk, filing cabinet, walls covered with photos. Garrett saw himself in those photos. Different ages, different years. His graduation from boot camp. His wedding day, back when he thought marriage and normalcy were possible. His father's funeral. Evelyn handed him a folder. Inside, every letter from Harlow Development Corporation. Every inspection report, every fine notice, a paper trail of systematic harassment. Garrett read through everything. His training kicked in. Marine Corps intelligence analysis, pattern recognition, threat assessment. This wasn't random. This was coordinated, professional. The kind of operation that required resources, connections, and someone who knew how to weaponize bureaucracy. There's something else, Evelyn said quietly. She pulled out another document, a geological survey from the Memphis City Archives. She'd requested it 2 weeks ago, curious about why Harlow wanted this particular neighborhood so badly. Garrett scanned the technical language, then stopped. Lithium deposits, he read aloud. Estimated value, $180 to $200 million. His eyes met his mother's. That's why, Evelyn said. It's not about the diner, it's about what's underneath it. This whole block. There's a fortune buried under our feet, and Harlow wants it. Garrett set down the survey, stood, walked to the window, looked out at Beale Street, the street where he'd learned to ride a bike, where he'd had his first kiss, where he'd said goodbye before shipping out to Kuwait. This was his home, his mother's home, his father's legacy, and some rich developer thought he could just take it. Garrett turned back to his mother. I need to make some calls. To who? The Brotherhood. By noon, 6 men sat in the diner's kitchen. Garrett had closed the blinds, locked the doors, put up a sign that said, closed for repairs. Evelyn made coffee and sandwiches while the men assembled. These weren't random bikers. These were specialists. Men Garrett trusted with his life because he already had, many times over. First through the door, Luther Kane, president of the Memphis Hells Angels Charter, 58 years old, built like a bear, voice like gravel, hands that could crush skulls or cradle babies. He had 7 grandchildren who adored him. Luther had founded the Memphis Charter in 1995 after moving from California. Purple Heart recipient, the kind of man who commanded respect just by walking into a room. He clasped Garrett's shoulder. Your mom okay? For now. Then let's make sure it stays that way. Next, Declan Murphy, prophet, the tech genius, 45 years old, thin, intense eyes behind wireframe glasses, laptop bag always on his shoulder. He'd worked for the NSA until he blew the whistle on illegal surveillance programs. Got fired, got blacklisted, got recruited by the Angels. I already started digging, Declan said, opening his laptop at the counter. This Harlow guy, he's dirty. I mean, dirty. I'll have details soon. Third, Silas Thornton. They called him Old Guard, 68 years old. Retired Memphis Police Department detective, 30 years on the force before he got tired of watching good cops get punished while bad cops got promoted. He walked away from his pension and found a new family in the Angels. Silas hugged Evelyn. Haven't seen you in too long, Evie. You neither, Si. How's Margaret? Wife's good. Still complaining about my motorcycle, he grinned. Still riding it anyway. Fourth, Rowan Sullivan. Wrench, 38 years old. Best mechanic in Tennessee. Hands that could fix anything with an engine. Also happened to be a wizard with explosives. Army Ranger, 3 tours in Afghanistan before he came home and realized civilian life was a poor fit for men trained in controlled demolition. Rowan nodded at Garrett. Someone needs something blown up? Not yet, but maybe later. Last 2 came together, brothers by blood, not just brotherhood. Cole and Mason Briggs, 32 and 30 years old respectively, both former Army infantry. Both did 2 tours in Iraq during the surge. Both came home with PTSD so bad they couldn't hold regular jobs. The Angels gave them purpose when society gave them nothing but judgment. The 7 men gathered around the diner's biggest booth. Evelyn poured coffee, stood nearby, but didn't sit. This was their world now. She was the mission, not the soldier. Luther spoke first. Garrett's filled me in on basics. Evelyn's being pressured to sell. Developer named Harlow. Things have escalated to threats and vandalism. That sum it up? That's the short version, Garrett said. What's the long version? Garrett spread out the documents, letters, reports, the geological survey, everything. The men passed papers around, read in silence. The temperature in the room dropped with each page turned. Declan typed furiously on his laptop. Vincent Harlow, 56 years old, Harlow Development Corporation, based in Nashville but operates throughout Tennessee. Revenue last year, $42 million. Board of directors includes 3 former state senators and a retired federal judge. He scrolled. Interesting. Military service. Air Force. Honorable discharge in 1992. Rank, major. Specialty, logistics and procurement. Garrett's head snapped up. Say that again. Air Force, major, logistics. Where was he stationed in 1991? Declan clicked through screens. Prince Sultan Air Base, Saudi Arabia, part of the Desert Storm Coalition. The room went completely still. Silas caught it first. You know this guy? Garrett's face had gone pale, memories flooding back. Sand, heat, the smell of jet fuel and corruption. A supply depot where weapons went missing. A major who got rich while Marines went without ammunition. An investigation that disappeared when the war ended. I know him, Garrett said quietly. He was investigated for stealing military supplies and selling them on the black market. Weapons, fuel, medical supplies. Men died because we didn't have what we needed, and he got rich. His hands clenched. They cleared him. Someone with power buried the evidence. And now he's here, Luther said, threatening your mother. Garrett looked at Evelyn. He doesn't know who you are, doesn't know your son is a Marine, doesn't know your son remembers what he did, doesn't know he just made the biggest mistake of his life. Mason Briggs leaned forward. So what's the play, boss? Garrett stood, walked to the counter, looked at his reflection in the chrome napkin holder, saw his father's face staring back. Thomas Blackwood. Good man, honest man, man who taught him that you protect what's yours, no matter the cost. We investigate, Garrett said. Find out everything about Harlow, his business, his partners, his dirty secrets. If there's evidence of corruption, we find it. If there's evidence of illegal activity, we document it. And then we bury him. And if we can't find evidence? Cole asked. Garrett turned around. His face was stone. His eyes were war. Then we make him wish we had. The laptop screen glowed blue in the dimly lit back office of Evelyn's diner. Declan's fingers moved across the keyboard like a pianist playing a concerto. Lines of code scrolled past. Firewalls crumbled. Encrypted files surrendered their secrets. Beautiful, he whispered to himself. Absolutely beautiful. It was 3 a.m, Wednesday, 36 hours since Garrett had returned to Memphis. 36 hours since the Brotherhood declared war on Vincent Harlow. Garrett sat across from Declan, drinking his 5th cup of coffee. Sleep was a luxury he couldn't afford. Not when his mother was in danger. Not when every hour that passed gave Harlow more time to move against her. Talk to me, Prophet, Garrett said. Declan leaned back, rubbed his eyes. Vincent Harlow is exactly what we thought. Dirty, but he's smart dirty. Layers upon layers of shell corporations. Offshore accounts. Everything legally structured to hide the rot underneath. Show me the rot. Declan turned the laptop around. On screen, financial records, bank transfers, property deeds, a web of transactions that looked legitimate on the surface, but told a different story underneath. Harlow Development Corporation is the public face, clean, respectable. But underneath there are 6 subsidiaries. Each one owns properties throughout Tennessee, and every single property was acquired through pressure tactics identical to what he's doing to your mother. Garrett leaned forward. How many properties? 47. Over the last 8 years. Always the same pattern. Identify a valuable location. Make a lowball offer. When the owner refuses, systematically destroy their business through legal harassment, code violations, and Declan clicked to another file. When that doesn't work, violence. Show me. Declan pulled up police reports, fires, vandalism, break-ins. In every case, the property owner eventually sold. In 3 cases, the owner died under suspicious circumstances. Heart attacks, car accidents, a drowning. These deaths, Garrett said, anyone investigate? Officially, yes. Local police looked into each one, found nothing, ruled them accidents. Declan's voice turned bitter. Unofficially, I hacked the medical examiner's personal files. She had doubts about 2 of the cases, wrote notes questioning the autopsy results. But those notes never made it into official reports. Someone buried them. Someone with access, someone with authority. Garrett stood, paced the small office. His mind worked through the problem like he'd been trained. Enemy assessment, threat evaluation, operational planning. Harlow has police protection, he said. Maybe judges, probably politicians. That's how he's operated for 8 years without consequences. Not just probably, Declan said. He pulled up another file. Campaign contributions. Harlow has donated over $300,000 to local and state politicians in the last 5 years, including, he highlighted a name, Memphis Police Chief Raymond Walker, $50,000 to his re-election campaign last year. So we can't go to the police. Not unless you want to warn Harlow we're coming. Garrett stopped pacing. What about federal? FBI? DOJ? Already tried. Sent anonymous tips to the FBI field office in Memphis. No response. Either they don't care about white-collar crime in Tennessee or someone at the FBI is also on Harlow's payroll. Exactly. Silence filled the office. Outside, Memphis slept. Inside, 2 men contemplated the reality that the system designed to protect people like Evelyn had been corrupted by men like Harlow. There's more, Declan said quietly, and you're not going to like it. Show me. Declan opened a new file. Military records. Vincent Harlow's service history. The official version was clean, exemplary, honorable discharge. But Declan had found the unofficial version. I got into the Defense Department's classified archives. Don't ask how. What you remember about Harlow and Desert Storm? All true. He was investigated, court-martial proceedings were initiated, but 3 weeks before the trial, everything disappeared. Case closed. Records sealed. Harlow walked away with full honors. How? Senator Richard Morrison, Tennessee, Harlow's wife's uncle. Morrison made phone calls, applied pressure, got the whole thing buried. Declan looked up. Morrison died in 2003. Harlow inherited his political connections. That's how he's untouchable. Garrett felt cold rage settling into his bones, the kind of cold that came before violence. So he's been doing this for 30 years, stealing, threatening, killing, and nobody stops him because he has money and friends in high places. That's the summary, yes. What about the lithium, the geological survey my mother found? Declan clicked to a new screen. That's where it gets really interesting. The Memphis City Planning Commission commissioned that survey 9 months ago. Cost $40,000. Paid for by an anonymous donor. Guess who that donor was? Harlow. Through a shell company, yes. He paid for the survey that told him there was $200 million worth of lithium under downtown Memphis. Then he started buying properties. Your mother's diner sits right on top of the richest deposit. Who else knows about the lithium? That's the question. The survey was classified, never released to the public, but someone leaked it because 3 months ago, a Chinese mining corporation called Yangtze Rare Earth Industries contacted Harlow about a partnership. Garrett's head snapped up. Chinese? Very Chinese. State-owned enterprise, which means Beijing knows about this lithium, and they want it. Lithium is critical for electric vehicles, batteries, electronics. Whoever controls lithium deposits controls the future of technology. And Harlow is selling American resources to China. He's trying to. The deal isn't finalized. But if it goes through, Harlow stands to make $500 million. The Chinese get lithium, and America loses strategic resources. Garrett stood completely still, His training connected the dots. This wasn't just about his mother's diner anymore. This was about national security, about a corrupt businessman selling out his country for profit, about the same man who'd stolen from American troops in 1991, now stealing from America itself. "We need to go higher," Garrett said, "above the FBI, above local police. We need someone who can't be bought." Who, Garrett thought, ran through his mental list of contacts, people he'd served with, people he'd met through the angels, people who owed him favors or shared his values. Then it hit him. Senator Barbara Mitchell, he said, Tennessee, former prosecutor, built her career fighting corruption. She's not Morrison, she's clean. You know her? No, but my mother does. Declan raised an eyebrow. Your mother knows a United States senator? Long story, I'll ask her in the morning. It is morning, Declan said, pointing at the window where dawn was breaking. Garrett grabbed his jacket. Then I'll ask her now. Keep digging. I want to know everything. Harlow's schedule, his security, his associates, every person who works for him, every property he owns, every secret he's trying to hide. Planning something? Always. Garrett walked out of the office, found his mother asleep in one of the booths, wrapped in her coat. She'd refused to leave the diner, refused to go home. This was her ground, and she wouldn't surrender it. He watched her sleep for a moment, saw the exhaustion in her face, the worry lines, the silver hair that used to be dark brown. When had she gotten old? When had time stolen so many years? He knelt beside the booth, gently touched her shoulder. Mom. Evelyn woke instantly, alert, aware, the way people sleep when they're afraid. What's wrong? She said. Nothing, but I need to ask you something. You know Senator Barbara Mitchell? Evelyn sat up, rubbed her face. I do. Why? How? Her daughter, Emily. She came to Memphis for college in 1998, worked here as a waitress. Sweet girl, smart. We became close. Evelyn smiled at the memory. One night, Emily got into trouble. Wrong party, wrong people. She called me instead of her mother. I went and got her, brought her home, helped her get sober, never told Barbara what happened. But Barbara knows you helped, Emily told her years later. When Barbara was running for Senate, she came here, thanked me personally, said if I ever needed anything, call her. Have you? Never. That was 16 years ago, Garrett. I'm sure she's forgotten. Politicians never forget people who save their children. Garrett pulled out his phone. Call her. Now? It's 5 in the morning. Now. This can't wait. Evelyn hesitated, then nodded, pulled out her own phone, scrolled through contacts, found a number she'd never deleted but never called. She hit dial, put it on speaker. 3 rings. Then a voice. Groggy but alert. This is Senator Mitchell. Barbara, this is Evelyn Blackwood. From Memphis. I'm sorry to call so early. Silence. Then, Evelyn? My God, is everything all right? Is Emily? Emily's fine. This isn't about her. This is about me. I need help. Tell me. So Evelyn did. Explained about Harlow, the threats, the vandalism, the corruption. She spoke for 10 minutes. The senator didn't interrupt once. When Evelyn finished, Barbara Mitchell's voice had changed. No longer sleepy, now sharp, focused, angry. Vincent Harlow, she said. I know that name. He donated to my opponent last election. $50,000 to try to keep me out of office. A pause. Evelyn, I'm going to have my chief of staff contact you today. We'll need documentation, everything you have. Letters, reports, photos, that geological survey. Can you provide that? Yes. Good. I'll also reach out to the FBI, not the Memphis field office, main headquarters in D.C. I have contacts there, people I trust. If Harlow is selling strategic resources to China, that's a federal crime. That's treason. Garrett leaned toward the phone. Senator, this is Garrett Blackwood, Evelyn's son. Garrett, Evelyn's told me about you. Marine Corps, right? Yes, ma'am. I need to know. How long will this take? My mother is in immediate danger. Harlow isn't going to wait for federal investigations. I understand. I'll have FBI agents in Memphis by tomorrow. They'll provide protection while we build the case. But Garrett, her voice turned serious, I need you to promise me something. Don't take matters into your own hands. I know your background. I know about the Hells Angels. I'm asking you to let the system work. Garrett looked at his mother, saw the hope in her eyes, the belief that maybe, finally, someone with power would help. He made a decision. I promise, Senator, we'll wait for the FBI. Thank you. Evelyn, I'll call you in 2 hours. Stay safe. The line went dead. Evelyn grabbed Garrett's hand. She's going to help. It's going to be okay. Garrett squeezed back, said nothing. Because he'd lied to a United States senator. He had no intention of waiting for the FBI. By noon, the Brotherhood had assembled for a second meeting, this time at the Hells Angels clubhouse. More private, more secure. 12 men sat around a large oak table. Garrett, Luther, Declan, Silas, Rowan, Cole, and Mason Briggs, plus 5 more members of the Memphis Charter. Good men, loyal men, men who understood that sometimes justice required action the law couldn't provide. Luther called the meeting to order. Update? Garrett stood, laid out everything Declan had found, the corruption, the deaths, the Chinese connection, the senator's involvement. When he finished, Luther spoke. So the feds are coming. That's good. Maybe, Garrett said. Or maybe Harlow has FBI agents on his payroll too. Maybe they come to Memphis and accidentally tip him off. Maybe evidence disappears. Maybe my mother ends up like those 3 other property owners who died under suspicious circumstances. You don't trust the system, Silas said. It wasn't a question. I don't trust that the system will move fast enough. Harlow is smart. He knows pressure is building. He'll escalate. And my mother is exposed. So what are you proposing? Luther asked. Garrett pulled out a map. Downtown Memphis. Red X marked Evelyn's diner. Blue circles marked other properties Harlow owned. A green star marked Harlow's office building in Nashville. 2 operations, Garrett said. First, protection. Starting tonight, we put round-the-clock security on the diner. Shifts of 3. Armed, visible. Anyone comes near my mother who isn't a regular customer, we intercept them. Luther nodded. Done. What's Operation 2? Intelligence gathering. We need leverage on Harlow. Something so damaging he can't risk it going public. Something that forces him to back off. What kind of leverage? Cole asked. The kind we find by getting into places we're not supposed to be. The room went quiet. What Garrett was proposing crossed legal lines. Breaking and entering, illegal surveillance, theft of documents, things that could send them all to prison. But these were men who'd already decided that laws written to protect the powerful weren't laws worth following when those same powers threatened the innocent. Rowan spoke first. I'm in, then Cole. Us too. Mason nodded agreement. One by one, every man at the table committed. Luther looked at Garrett. This goes sideways, it's not just you going down. It's all of us, the whole charter. You understand that? I do, and you're asking us to risk everything for your mother. I am. Luther stood, walked around the table, stopped in front of Garrett, extended his hand. Then let's go to war. They shook. The Brotherhood had spoken. Thursday night, 11 p.m., Nashville, Tennessee. Harlow Development Corporation occupied the 5th floor of a modern glass tower in downtown Nashville, 40 miles from Memphis, far enough to feel safe, close enough to maintain control. 3 men crouched in the parking garage. Garrett, Declan, Rowan, all dressed in black, no patches, no identification, nothing that could trace back to the Angels. Security? Garrett whispered. Declan checked his tablet. He'd hacked the building's systems an hour ago. 2 guards, one in the lobby, one patrolling floors 2 through 4. 5th floor is empty. Harlow's office is on the southeast corner. Cameras? Looped, As far as they know, we're not here. Alarms? Motion sensors on windows and doors. But I control them now. We're ghosts. Garrett nodded, checked his watch. We have 30 minutes before the patrol guard cycles back. Move fast, stay quiet, get what we need and get out. They moved to the service elevator. Declan swiped a cloned keycard. Doors opened. They stepped inside. As the elevator rose, Garrett felt the familiar calm settling over him. The same calm before combat missions in Kuwait. The same focus, the same absolute certainty that what he was doing was necessary. Fifth floor. Doors opened onto darkness. They stepped out, flashlights on, red lenses to preserve night vision. The office was exactly what Garrett expected. Expensive, sterile, success displayed like trophies on walls. Harlow's personal office was locked. Rowan pulled out tools. 30 seconds later, the door swung open. Inside, mahogany desk, leather chairs, walls covered with photos of Harlow shaking hands with politicians, celebrities, business leaders. A shrine to a man's ego. Start searching, Garrett said. Files, computers, anything. Declan went straight for the desktop computer. Plugged in a device that bypassed passwords. Within minutes, he was downloading everything. Rowan checked filing cabinets. Locked. He picked them open one by one. Garrett searched the desk. Drawers full of ordinary office supplies. Nothing useful. Then his hand found something taped under the bottom drawer. A key. Got something, he said. The key fit a small wall safe hidden behind a painting of Nashville's skyline. Garrett opened it. Inside, files. Paper documents. The kind you keep separate from computers because you don't want any digital trail. Garrett pulled them out, started reading. His blood went cold. Declan, Rowan, look at this. They gathered around. Flashlights illuminated pages that detailed systematic corruption spanning decades. Bribes paid to city officials, not just in Memphis, in 6 Tennessee cities. Names, amounts, dates, bank account numbers, blackmail material, photos of politicians in compromising positions, audio recordings of conversations that should have been private, and something worse, a file labeled Problem Properties. Inside, photos of the 3 property owners who died. Alongside each photo, handwritten notes detailing surveillance, daily routines, vulnerabilities. Next to one photo, the word resolved in red ink. Date of death noted. He ordered hits, Rowan whispered. He actually ordered hits. Garrett felt sick. He'd seen death before, caused death in combat. But this was different. This was cold, calculated, murder for profit. Photograph everything, he said. Every page, every photo. We're taking this to the senator and the FBI. This ends now. Declan worked fast, camera clicking, pages turning, building a case that would destroy Vincent Harlow forever. Then Garrett saw the last file. His hand trembled as he opened it. Inside, information about Evelyn Blackwood. Photos of the diner, photos of his mother, her daily routine documented, where she lived, when she was alone. And at the bottom, handwritten notes dated 2 days ago. Subject refuses to cooperate. Escalation authorized. Timeline, 72 hours. Method, make it look like robbery gone wrong. Local PD contact confirmed for cleanup. Garrett read it twice. Vincent Harlow had ordered his mother's murder. In 3 days, she would be dead. We need to go, Declan said. Now. I'm getting alerts. Someone's accessing the security system remotely. They know we're here. How long? Maybe 5 minutes before police arrive. They grabbed the files, shut the safe, put everything back as close to original as possible. Moved fast but controlled. Back in the elevator, doors closing, descending. Then the elevator stopped, between floors. Emergency lights flickered on. They've locked us down, Declan said, fingers flying over his tablet. Someone overrode my access. We're trapped. Can you fix it? I'm trying. The elevator lurched, started moving again, but not down, up. Someone's bringing us to the lobby, Rowan said, where security is waiting. Garrett looked up. Standard elevator, acoustic tile ceiling, maintenance hatch. Up, he said. Through the hatch, into the shaft. We climbed down. Are you insane? Rowan said. You have a better idea? Silence. They boosted each other up, through the hatch, into the darkness of the elevator shaft. Cables hung like steel vines, the smell of grease and dust. Below, they heard the elevator stop. Doors open, voices, security guards entering. Where are they? They were in here. The cameras showed. Check the hatch, Garrett. When they were sure the guards were gone, they began climbing down the maintenance ladder built into the shaft wall. It took 10 minutes to reach the garage level. They pried open the doors from inside, emerged into the parking garage, ran to their motorcycles parked 3 blocks away. Engines roared to life. They disappeared into Nashville traffic. Only when they were back on I-40, heading toward Memphis, did any of them speak. That was too close, Rowan said through the helmet comm. But we got it, Declan replied. Everything we need to bury Harlow. Garrett said nothing, just rode, focused on the road ahead, because now he knew the truth. Harlow wasn't just a corrupt businessman, he was a murderer, and he'd already planned his mother's death. The FBI and Senator Mitchell would take time, weeks to build a case, weeks to make arrests, weeks his mother didn't have. The kill order was dated 3 days ago, which meant tomorrow, Friday, was day 4. Time was up. He's going to make his move tonight. He's going to make his move tonight, Garrett said. Friday night, downtown Memphis. Lots of foot traffic. Easy to make a robbery look random. He's probably already hired someone. Professional. Clean. By Saturday morning, my mother will be dead, and Harlow will have the property. So we protect her, Luther said. Lock down the diner. Nobody gets in. That's temporary. Even if we stop tonight's attempt, he'll just try again. We need to end this. Permanently. How? Silas asked. Garrett pulled out his phone. Called a number he'd memorized but never thought he'd use. It rang twice. Then, Senator Mitchell's office. This is Garrett Blackwood. I need to speak to the senator. Now. Tell her it's an emergency. Tell her Vincent Harlow is planning to murder my mother tonight. 30 seconds later, Barbara Mitchell's voice came on the line. Garrett, what's happening? He told her. Everything. The break-in he didn't mention. Just the files they'd anonymously received. The kill order. The timeline. Jesus Christ, Mitchell breathed. I'm calling the FBI right now. Special agent in charge for the Memphis office. I'll have agents there in 2 hours. With respect, Senator, we don't trust the Memphis FBI. Harlow has local law enforcement in his pocket. We need DC. We need people he can't touch. A pause. Then, you're right. I'll make calls. But Garrett, I need those documents. Everything you have. Can you get them to my office today? Yes, ma'am. I'll drive to DC myself if I have to. Do it. And Garrett, keep your mother safe, whatever it takes. I will. He hung up, looked at the assembled brothers. We have 12 hours until sunset. Here's what we're going to do. Declan, you take the files to DC. Drive fast. Don't stop. Get them into the senator's hands personally. Silas, you coordinate with Detective Callahan. I know she's clean. Get her up to speed. Have local police we can trust on standby. Rowan, Cole, Mason, full perimeter security at the diner. Visible presence. I want Harlow's hired gun to see us and know tonight's job just got impossible. What about you? Luther asked. Garrett checked his pistol, holstered it, grabbed his leather jacket. The Hells Angels patch caught the light. I'm going to have a conversation with Vincent Harlow, man to man. Make sure he understands that if anything happens to my mother, he doesn't get to hide behind lawyers or bodyguards or corrupt cops. He answers to me. That's a threat, Luther said. That's a promise. The sun rose over Memphis. Friday morning, the day Vincent Harlow planned to murder Evelyn Blackwood. But he didn't know that her son had become death itself. and death was riding a Harley straight to his door. The war for Evelyn's diner had begun, and only one side would walk away. Saturday, 12:47 a.m., East Memphis. The phone call came while Garrett was still on the highway between Nashville and Memphis. Luther's voice, tight, controlled. The kind of control that meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. They took her. Garrett's hands clenched the handlebars. The motorcycle swerved. He corrected, pulled over to the shoulder, killed the engine. Say that again. Evelyn, they took her. 40 minutes ago. Professional extraction. Four-man team. Military tactics. They breached through the building next door, the one Harlow bought 6 months ago. Cut the power. Used tranq darts on our guys. In and out in 90 seconds. Garrett's vision tunneled. The world reduced to a single point of white-hot clarity. Who's hurt? Cole, Mason, and Rowan. All darted. They're awake now. Pissed off but functional. Nobody dead. They wanted a clean snatch and grab, not a massacre. Because a massacre brings too much heat, Garrett said. His voice was dead calm. The kind of calm that came before Category 5 hurricanes. A kidnapping of an old woman? They can spin that, make me look like the aggressor when I come for her. You got a message, video and text, sending it now. Garrett's phone buzzed. He opened the file. The video was 8 seconds long. Evelyn, black hood over her head, hands zip-tied behind her back, sitting in a metal chair in what looked like a warehouse. A gloved hand reached into frame, tilted her head up roughly, then the video cut to black. The text message was simple. You have 12 hours. Bring all evidence. Original files only. We'll verify. Come alone to the address we send at 6 a.m. Any tricks, any backup, any FBI, she dies. You get one chance. Don't waste it. V.H. V.H. Vincent Harlow. The man had stopped hiding, stopped pretending. This was his final move. All in. Garrett stared at the screen, at his mother's hooded face, at the rough hands of men who didn't care that she was 67 years old, who didn't care that she'd spent her life feeding people who couldn't pay, who didn't care about anything except money and power. Garrett, Luther's voice, you still there? I'm here. What do you want us to do? Garrett looked up at the night sky, stars hidden behind clouds, rain starting again, cold, relentless. He thought about his father, Thomas Blackwood, the man who taught him that you protect your family no matter the cost, the man who died too young, leaving Evelyn alone to raise a broken son coming home from war. He thought about Kuwait, about the promises he'd made to dying friends, about the weight of oaths taken and honor earned through blood. He thought about 3 years of silence, of pride and stubbornness, and the chasm between mother and son that had almost become permanent. And he thought about the simple truth that had brought him home. Some things were worth dying for. But more importantly, some things were worth living for. We're going to get her back, Garrett said. All of us, together. And then we're going to end Vincent Harlow permanently. How? I'm coming home. Get everyone to the clubhouse. I'll be there in 30 minutes. We plan this right. We plan this smart. Because we only get one shot. Garrett, the message said, come alone. I know what it said. And Harlow knows I won't. This isn't about following instructions. It's about showing him that he just made a mistake he can't survive. Garrett hung up, restarted the motorcycle. The engine roared to life. And Garrett Blackwood rode into the darkness like the angel of death he'd been trained to be. 1:43 a.m. Hell's Angels Clubhouse. 28 men filled the main room, silent, waiting. Every face showed the same expression, controlled fury. Evelyn wasn't just Garrett's mother. Over the years, she'd become mother to all of them, feeding them when they were broke, listening when they needed to talk, never judging, never turning away. And someone had taken her. That was unforgivable. Garrett walked to the center of the room, laid a map on the table. Memphis, surrounding areas, potential locations for a hostage situation. They'll send the address at 6 a.m., he said. That gives us 4 hours to prepare. Here's what we know. Professional extraction team, military tactics, probably contractors, not local criminals. Harlow hired the best because he knows this is his endgame. He gets the evidence, kills Mom, kills me, and disappears with enough money to start over somewhere without extradition. But we have copies of everything, Declan said. Senator Mitchell has files. FBI has files. Killing Evelyn doesn't help him. It helps his ego, Silas replied. This isn't rational anymore. This is a man who's lost everything and wants revenge before he goes down. Garrett nodded. Exactly, which makes him predictable. He'll choose a location he controls. Isolated, easy to defend. Multiple exits for him, one entrance for me. Probably a warehouse or industrial building. He marked 3 locations on the map. These are properties Harlow owns through shell companies. Declan, you confirm that? Confirmed. All 3 are abandoned, off the books, perfect for wet work. Then we prepare for all 3. Split into teams, recon each location. When we get the address, we'll already know the layout, the approaches, the exits. We go in fast. We go in overwhelming. We extract Mom, and we don't leave anyone standing who tries to stop us. Luther stood. This is a combat operation. Once we start, we're committed. There's no calling it off. No backup from legitimate law enforcement. If this goes wrong, we all go down. Prison. For a long time. Everyone understand that? Heads nodded. No hesitation. Good, Luther continued. Then let's talk tactics. Garrett, you're the Marine. You've done extractions before. What's the play? Garrett studied the map. His mind shifted into combat mode. Terrain analysis, force disposition, rules of engagement. 2-phase operation, he said. Phase 1. I go in alone like Harlow demands. I'm the distraction. I keep his attention on me while I locate Mom and assess the threat. Phase 2. Brotherhood assault. Multiple entry points. Overwhelming force. Fast and violent. We extract Mom and anyone else who might be held. We secure Harlow if possible. If not possible, we make sure he can't run. What about the contractors? Rowan asked. These guys are professionals, former military like us. They'll be armed. They'll fight back. Then we give them a choice first, Garrett said. These are hired guns, not fanatics. They're doing a job for money. We offer them a better deal. Walk away now. Keep their lives. No consequences. Most mercs aren't interested in dying for a paycheck. And the ones who don't walk away? Garrett's face was stone. Then they made their choice. Declan pulled out a laptop, pulled up thermal satellite imagery, illegally obtained, probably from NSA systems he still had backdoor access to. I've been monitoring all 3 locations for the last hour. 2 are completely cold, no heat signatures. But this one, he highlighted the 3rd location, an abandoned meatpacking plant near the Mississippi River. This one has activity, 6 heat signatures, human-sized, one separated from the others. That's her, Garrett breathed. That's Mom. We don't know for sure until we get the address, Luther cautioned. I know. Garrett stared at the screen, at the lone heat signature separated from the others. Isolated, alone, scared. His hands curled into fists. Hold on, Mom. I'm coming. 5:47 a.m., 13 minutes before the address arrived. Garrett stood outside the clubhouse, alone. Rain had stopped. Dawn was threatening the eastern horizon. In 13 minutes, everything would change. He heard footsteps behind him. Turned. Detective Nora Callahan. She looked exhausted, conflicted. I can't be part of this, she said quietly. What you're planning, it's vigilante justice. It's illegal. I'm a cop. I took an oath. I know. But I also took an oath to protect people. And the system failed Evelyn. It failed your mother. It failed everyone Harlow ever hurt. She paused. So I'm going to be very clear about what I'm about to say. At 6 a.m., I'm going to respond to a noise complaint on the other side of Memphis. It'll take me at least 2 hours to clear that call. During those 2 hours, I won't be monitoring police radio. I won't be checking my phone. I won't know about anything that happens in East Memphis. Garrett met her eyes. Understanding passed between them. Thank you, he said. Don't thank me. Just bring Evelyn home. She turned to leave, stopped. And Garrett? The contractors Harlow hired? I've dealt with these private military companies before. They're dangerous, but they're also practical. Most of them won't die for someone else's revenge. Remember that. She walked away. Garrett checked his watch. 5:51 a.m., 9 minutes. His phone was in his hand before he realized he'd pulled it out. He stared at the screen, at his recent calls, at his mother's number. The last time he'd called her, really called her, not just responded to her cry for help, was 4 years ago. Before the fight, before the silence. Now she was zip-tied to a chair in a warehouse, waiting for rescue or death. And Garrett realized something. He'd been angry at her for 3 years because she didn't understand his choices, didn't understand the Hell's Angels, didn't understand why he needed brotherhood after the military. But she'd understood the most important thing. She'd understood he was hurting, and she'd loved him anyway. Even when he pushed her away, even when he disappeared for 3 years, even when he chose pride over family. She'd kept his number in her phone, never deleted it, never gave up on him. And when she needed help, really desperately needed help, she'd called him. Not the police, not a lawyer, not anyone else. Him, because despite everything, he was still her son, and she was still his mother. I'm going to get you out, Garrett whispered to the darkness. I promise, whatever it takes. His phone buzzed. 6 a.m. exactly. The address appeared on screen. Industrial Meat Packing Plant, 4751 Riverside Drive, East Memphis. Come alone. You have 1 hour. Below it, a second message. P.S. I know you won't come alone. I'm counting on it. Bring your biker friends. Bring the FBI. Bring whoever you want. They'll all die with you and your mother. This ends today. One way or another. V. H. Garrett stared at the message, read it twice. Harlow was baiting him. Wanted him to bring backup. Wanted a massacre. Wanted to take down the Hell's Angels, Garrett and Evelyn, in one operation. It was a trap, obviously a trap, and Garrett was going to walk right into it, because that's what you did for family. He turned, walked back into the clubhouse. 27 men looked up at him. We have the location, Garrett said, and we have 1 hour. Gear up. This is it. 6:34 a.m., 4 blocks from the meatpacking plant. 28 motorcycles sat silent in an abandoned lot. Engines off. Riders crouched low, waiting. Garrett checked his gear one final time. No gun. Harlow's men would search him, but he had other weapons. A ceramic knife in his boot, a flexible saw wire in his belt, a small packet of powdered irritant in his jacket lining, and most importantly, 27 brothers positioned around the target building. Luther handed him a small earpiece, practically invisible, short-range radio. We'll hear everything you hear, Luther said. The second you locate Evelyn and confirm she's alive, you say the word. We breach. 3 teams, north, south, and west entrances. Rowan's team takes the roof. Overwhelming force, in and out in less than 3 minutes. What about Harlow? If he's there, we take him alive, if possible. If not possible, Luther shrugged. Sometimes things happen in combat. Accidents. Garrett knew what he was saying, knew what he was offering. A way to end this permanently. No trial, no lawyers, no chance of Harlow buying his way out. Just final justice. But Garrett shook his head. We do this right. We're not murderers. We're not like him. We take him alive. Let the system finish him. The system might let him go. Then we deal with that if it happens. But we don't become what we're fighting against. That's the line we don't cross. Luther studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, your call. But Garrett, if it comes down to choosing between Harlow's life and your mother's, you know what to do. I know. Garrett stood, walked toward the meatpacking plant alone. Behind him, the Brotherhood faded into shadows and positions. Invisible. Waiting. Inside him, the Marine woke up fully. The warrior who'd fought in deserts and survived. The protector who'd sworn oaths to defend the defenseless. Today, Garrett Blackwood wasn't a biker. He wasn't a son. He wasn't a man seeking redemption. He was death walking through dawn light. And Vincent Harlow was about to learn what happened when you threatened death's family. The meatpacking plant loomed ahead, rusted metal, broken windows, graffiti-covered walls proclaiming territory long abandoned. Garrett walked to the front entrance. The door was ajar. Invitation. He pushed it open, stepped inside. The smell hit him first. Old blood, rust, decay. This building had processed thousands of animals in its time. Now it was processing human suffering. "Mr. Blackwood," a voice from the shadows, professional, calm. "Stop there, hands visible." Garrett raised his hands. A man stepped into view, mid-30s, tactical gear, assault rifle slung across his chest, professional military bearing. Behind him, two more men, same gear, same bearing, contractors, not Harlow's regular thugs. "I'm here for my mother," Garrett said. "We know. Turn around, hands on the wall. I need to search you." Garrett complied. The contractor was thorough. Found the ceramic knife immediately, the wire saw, the irritant powder. "Clever," the contractor said, "but not clever enough." He tossed the items aside. "You're clean. This way." They walked through the building, past rusted machinery, past loading docks and processing areas where animals had become meat and meat had become product. Garrett's earpiece was silent. Luther and the others were listening, waiting. He needed to find Evelyn, needed to confirm she was alive. They climbed stairs to a second-floor office area, windows overlooking the main floor. Through one window, Garrett saw his mother. She was tied to a chair in what looked like a former supervisor's office, still hooded, but alive. He could see her chest rising and falling, regular breathing. Relief flooded through him. Then he saw Vincent Harlow. The CEO stood behind Evelyn, one hand resting almost casually on her shoulder. He looked worse than he had yesterday. Bloodshot eyes, disheveled suit, the appearance of a man coming apart at the seams. "Garrett Blackwood," Harlow said. "Right on time. Come in. Join us." Garrett entered the office. 3 contractors stayed outside. The odds were impossible, but odds had never stopped him before. "Let her go," Garrett said. "This is between us." "No, this is between all of us." Harlow gestured around. "This is where it ends. You, your mother, your biker gang waiting outside. Yes, I know they're out there. My men have thermal imaging. We counted 27 heat signatures surrounding this building. Very predictable." Garrett said nothing, kept his face neutral. "Here's what's going to happen," Harlow continued. "You're going to call them off. Tell them to stand down. Then you're going to give me the original evidence files. The real ones, not the copies. And then," he pulled out a pistol, pressed it against Evelyn's head. "Then I might let you both live." "No," Garrett said simply. Harlow blinked. "What?" "I said no. You're not getting the files. You're not getting away with this. And you're definitely not walking out of here alive if you hurt her. You're not in a position to make demands." "Actually, I am." Garrett took a step forward. The contractors outside tensed. "Because you made a mistake. You assumed I was alone. You assumed I was helpless. You assumed wrong." He pulled the earpiece out, held it up so Harlow could see. "They've been listening to everything. They know Mom's alive. They know exactly where we are. And right now they're moving into position." Harlow's face went pale. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Garrett smiled. It was not pleasant. "Tell you what, look out that window, the one facing north. Tell me what you see." Harlow hesitated, then moved to the window, looked out. His face went from pale to white, because on every rooftop visible, on every approach, behind every piece of cover, Hell's Angels. 27 of them, all armed, all aimed at the meatpacking plant. "That's my family," Garrett said quietly. "That's my brotherhood. And they're here because you made a fundamental mistake. You thought I was weak. You thought because I came back from my mother, I was soft, emotional, easy to manipulate. He took another step forward. But the thing about family, it doesn't make you weak. It makes you dangerous. Because a man fighting for himself can be scared, can be reasoned with, can be broken. But a man fighting for the people he loves, another step. That man has already accepted death, already made peace with sacrifice. That man will do anything, anything to protect what matters. Harlow raised the gun, pointed it at Garrett instead of Evelyn. Stop moving or I'll shoot. No, you won't. Because the second you fire that gun, 27 rifles fire back. This building becomes a kill zone, and you don't have enough men or bullets to stop what comes next. My contractors are hired guns who don't want to die for your vendetta. Garrett raised his voice. Can you hear me out there? You contractors. I'm a former Marine. Some of you probably served too. You know this is a bad play. You know Harlow's beaten. You know if shooting starts, most of you don't walk away. So here's my offer. Leave now. Walk away. No one follows. No charges. You live. Or stay, follow a desperate man's orders, and die for a paycheck. Your choice. You have 30 seconds to decide. Silence. Then footsteps, moving away, downstairs, outdoors. The contractors were leaving. Harlow spun. Where are you going? I paid you. I own you. You don't own anything anymore, one of them shouted back. You're done, Harlow. Finished. We're not dying for you. Doors slammed. Vehicles started. Drove away. Harlow stood alone in the office, gun shaking in his hand, pressed against Evelyn's hooded head. It's over, Garrett said quietly. Let her go. No, no, this isn't how it ends. I'm Vincent Harlow. I'm... You're a broken man who lost everything because you couldn't accept no for an answer. Garrett's voice was almost gentle. You were a military officer once. You had honor. Somewhere along the way you traded it for money, for power, and now you have neither. Harlow's finger tightened on the trigger. Garrett saw it happening in slow motion, saw the desperation, the rage, the final lashing out of a cornered animal. Time slowed. Garrett moved. 23 years since Desert Storm, but muscle memory never faded. He closed the distance in 2 steps. His hand shot out, grabbed the gun, twisted it away from Evelyn's head. The shot went wild, shattered a window, and then Hell's Angels poured through every entrance. Rowan through the roof, Luther through the north door, Silas through the south, Cole and Mason through windows on rappelling lines. The entire building filled with the Brotherhood in less than 5 seconds. Garrett had Harlow on the ground, knee on his chest. The gun clattered away. It's over, Garrett said. Finally over. Luther cut Evelyn's restraints, pulled off the hood. She gasped, saw her son. Tears streamed down her face. Garrett, I'm here, Mom. I've got you. He stood, helped her to her feet. She collapsed into his arms. And Garrett Blackwood, road captain of the Hells Angels, former United States Marine, son of Thomas and Evelyn Blackwood, finally understood what his father had meant all those years ago. You protect what's yours, no matter the cost. He'd paid the cost, faced death, risked everything, and he'd won. Not because he was the strongest, not because he was the smartest, but because he'd never been alone. 7:23 a.m. Memphis police arrived with FBI in tow. Detective Callahan took Vincent Harlow into custody, read him his rights while he ranted about lawyers and conspiracies and injustice. Agent Webb and Chen secured the scene, collected evidence, took statements. This will go to trial, Webb told Garrett, and you'll have to testify. But based on what we're seeing here, attempted kidnapping, attempted murder, hiring armed contractors, Harlow's done. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison. Good, Garrett said simply, but the story wasn't over. 18 months later, the Memphis sun blazed down on Beale Street. Summer. Tourists everywhere, music pouring from clubs, the smell of barbecue and history mixing in humid air. At the corner of Beale and 3rd, Evelyn's diner had transformed. The building next door, the one Harlow had used to launch the kidnapping, had been purchased with settlement money from the lawsuit. Renovated, expanded. Now it was the Blackwood Community Center. 3 floors. Ground floor, the original diner expanded to seat twice as many people. Same menu, same quality, same heart. Second floor, Brotherhood Customs, Garrett's motorcycle repair shop. He employed 8 veterans now, taught them mechanics, gave them purpose, gave them family. Third floor, Community Services, job training, support groups, Veterans Affairs Office, free legal clinic, all funded by donations and the settlement from Harlow's frozen assets. On this particular Saturday morning, Evelyn stood behind the grill cooking for a packed house. 72 years old now, silver hair still in a practical bun, hands still strong, still feeding people, still home. Garrett walked in carrying his 5-year-old nephew. Mason Briggs had gotten married, had a kid, named him Thomas after Garrett's father. The little boy saw his Uncle Garrett and squealed with delight. "Uncle Gare! Uncle Gare! Grandma Evie promised pancakes." "Did she now?" Garrett grinned, set the boy on a counter stool. "Well, Grandma Evie doesn't break promises." Evelyn appeared with a plate of pancakes shaped like a motorcycle. The boy's eyes went wide. "You're the best, Grandma." "I know, baby. Now eat up." The diner filled with more people. Luther and his 7 grandchildren. Silas and his wife celebrating their 40th anniversary. Rowan and the girlfriend who'd become a fiancé. Cole and Mason teaching young veterans how to change oil in the garage out back. Detective Callahan stopped by for lunch. Agent Webb and Chen came down from D.C. to check on their favorite case. Senator Mitchell sent a handwritten note and a donation check. The community hadn't just healed. It had grown, strengthened, become something bigger than what it was before. At noon, a young woman entered. Early 20s, nervous, looking around like she wasn't sure she belonged. Garrett noticed, walked over. "Can I help you?" I'm looking for the Veterans Support Group. The flyer said Saturdays at noon." "3rd floor. I'll take you up." He led her upstairs, opened the door to the meeting room. Inside, 15 people, different ages, different backgrounds, all veterans, all struggling with the transition to civilian life. "Everyone," Garrett said. "This is..." He looked at the young woman. "Sarah," she said quietly. "Army, 2 tours in Syria. Got back 6 months ago. Can't seem to find my footing." An older veteran, a woman in her 50s who'd served in Desert Storm, stood up, extended her hand. "Sarah, welcome home. Have a seat. You're safe here." Garrett watched Sarah join the circle, watched her shoulders relax slightly, watched her realize she wasn't alone. Then he went back downstairs. His mother was taking a break, sitting in a booth with a cup of coffee, looking out the window at Beale Street. Garrett slid in across from her. "You ever think about that night?" he asked quietly. Evelyn knew what night he meant. "Every day." "Regret calling me?" She looked at him, really looked at him. "Not for 1 second. You saved my life, Garrett. You and your brothers. The Hells Angels I spent 3 years being angry at. They risked everything for me. Your family, that's what family does. I know that now." She reached across the table, took his hand. "I'm sorry I didn't understand before. I'm sorry I pushed you away when you needed the brotherhood most. You didn't know. I didn't explain it well. No, but I should have trusted you. Should have understood that you knew what you needed. That the angels gave you something I couldn't." Garrett squeezed her hand. "You gave me everything, Mom. You raised me, loved me, waited for me to come home. Even when I was too stubborn to call, you never gave up on me." "Never," Evelyn confirmed. "And I never will." They sat in comfortable silence, mother and son, bonds tested by fire and proven unbreakable. Outside, a group of Harleys pulled up. 10 bikes, riders dismounted, new members, young men and women who'd found their way to the Memphis Charter, looking for belonging, purpose, brotherhood. Luther greeted them, started explaining what it meant to wear the patch. the responsibilities, the commitment, the family. Garrett watched through the window, remembered being that young recruit 16 years ago, lost, broken, looking for a reason to keep living. He'd found it. Not in the leather and chrome, not in the reputation or the rebellion, in the simple truth that you were never alone if you had brothers, and you always had a home if you had family. His phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. He opened it, read, "Mr. Blackwood, this is former contractor James Mitchell. Led the team that kidnapped your mother. Never got a chance to say this properly. I'm sorry. What we did was wrong. You gave us a choice when you didn't have to. Let us walk away when you could have killed us. That's honor. Real honor. I'm out of the contracting business now, working with a veterans nonprofit, trying to do better, trying to be better. Thought you should know. Thank you for the second chance. J.M." Garrett stared at the message, then typed a reply. "Everyone deserves a second chance. Use yours well. GB." He hit send. Evelyn noticed. "Good news?" "Yeah, I think so. Someone who made bad choices trying to make better ones. That's all any of us can do." Garrett stood, kissed his mother's forehead. "I've got to get back to the shop. Got 3 bikes to finish before closing. Will you stay for dinner?" "Always." He walked toward the door, stopped, turned back. "Hey, Mom." "Yes, baby." "I love you. I know I don't say it enough, but I do. I love you." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears, happy tears. "I love you too, Garrett, more than you'll ever know." He smiled, waved, walked out into the Memphis heat. Behind him, Evelyn's diner continued its work, feeding people, building community, creating family, one meal, one conversation, one act of kindness at a time. Above, the Blackwood Community Center hummed with activity. Veterans finding purpose, families finding support, people finding hope. And on the sidewalk, Garrett Blackwood stood for a moment, just breathing, just being. He'd spent 23 years carrying war, carrying guilt, carrying the weight of wondering if he'd ever be good enough, strong enough, worthy enough. He knew the answer now. He was enough. He'd always been enough. Not because of what he'd done in combat, not because of the Hells Angels patch on his jacket, but because when it mattered most, when the people he loved needed him, he'd shown up. That was the measure of a man. Not power, not money, not reputation. Just showing up, standing up, protecting what mattered. A young couple walked past. The woman was pregnant, very pregnant. The man looked nervous and excited in equal measure. They stopped in front of the diner, read the sign, "Evelyn's Diner in Blackwood Community Center," the woman read aloud. "It says they have free birthing classes on Thursdays." "Should we check it out?" the man asked. "Let's do it." They walked in, and Garrett knew, without seeing, without following, that his mother would greet them, would feed them, would tell them about the classes and the support groups and the community that would help them become parents, would fold them into the family that kept growing, kept expanding, kept becoming more than what it had been before. That was Evelyn's gift. That was her legacy. Not the diner, not the food, the family, the community, the home she built for anyone who needed one. And Garrett had inherited that gift, passed it to the Hells Angels, passed it to the veterans he employed, passed it forward like his father had passed it to him. A Harley pulled up. Luther dismounted, walked over. "You good?" the president asked. "Yeah, I'm good. Vincent Harlow's trial starts next week. Webb called. They want you to testify." "I'll be there." "And after? After he's convicted and sent away for life?" Garrett looked at the diner, at the community center, at the street where he'd grown up and learned and loved and lost and found himself again. "After that, we keep building, keep helping, keep doing what Dad taught me. Protect what's yours." Luther nodded. "That's a good answer." He clapped Garrett's shoulder. "Church meeting tonight, 7 p.m. We've got 3 prospects ready to vote in." "I'll be there." Luther rode away. Garrett stood for one more moment, Then he walked to his motorcycle, threw his leg over, started the engine. The rumble was familiar, comforting, home. He rode down Beale Street, past the history and music and life that made Memphis what it was, past the places where he'd learned to fight, past the places where he'd learned to survive, toward the places where he'd learned to live. The Memphis sun climbed higher. The day stretched ahead, full of possibility, full of purpose. And Garrett Blackwood, son, Marine, brother, protector, rode into it with a smile, because he'd learned the final lesson, the one his father knew, the one his mother taught, the one the Hell's Angels proved again and again. You were never alone if you had family. You always had purpose if you had people to protect, and you were always home if you had love. Vincent Harlow had tried to take that away, tried to destroy it, tried to prove that power mattered more than people. He'd failed, because in the end, power faded, money disappeared, empires crumbled, but family was forever. And the Blackwood family, blood and chosen, mother and son, brothers and community, would stand long after men like Harlow were forgotten. That was the real victory. Not the fight, not the rescue, not even the justice. The simple, profound truth that love was stronger than hate, that community was stronger than corruption, that family was stronger than anything that tried to tear it apart. Garrett rode through Memphis with that knowledge burning bright in his chest. The war was over, the battle was won, and he was finally, truly, completely home.